2 in our notes. We're going to continue taking notes today. I'm using black and purple for my colors. At the top, I'd like you to write with me. NS.3, we are multiplying decimals. Again, if I go too fast at any point in time, you can always pause the video. Continue writing with me. The first example I'm going to give you, I'm going to write sideways on purpose, 0.2 times 0.6. When multiplying decimals, you can kind of ignore the decimal at first and just multiply like the normal algorithm, and then it matters how many numbers are behind the decimal in your problem to figure out where you place the decimal in your answer. So just so you can see it, we have a 2 and a 6. Those are the numbers that are behind the decimal in the problem, which means we have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our problem. And that means we should have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. When using the standard algorithm, you write it up and down. So like 0.2 on this line, you're going to multiply it by 0.6. You don't necessarily line up the decimals like you did with adding and subtracting. You more line up your digits. So if you had like a 2-digit number, you would line them both up. If you just have a single digit, you would line it up over here. So you're just ready to multiply. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. You really don't need to cross the 6 off and the 1 and now multiply and put a bunch of zeros here, because 0 times anything is going to be 0, and you don't need to keep writing zeros to add. So you're really done. Your answer is not 12. You have to remember there are 2 numbers behind the decimal in our problem, which means we need to have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. So where would our decimal place go? We would need to have 2 numbers behind. The decimal place would go right here in this front. You could put a 0 in front and call it 0.12. You could just call it 0.12. Box in your answer nice and neat. And that is your answer to the first example. Draw a line and we will do another example. The next example is 0.4 times 3. Yep, I said 3. It does not have a decimal, so where would you place it if it did? Well, you think of money. $3 would be 3.00. So how many numbers are behind the decimal in the problem? Well, we just have 1 number that's behind the decimal in our problem, which means our answer should only have 1 number behind the decimal. So when multiplying this one, 0 and 4 to me is a 2-digit number and 3 is just a 1-digit number. I would put the 0.4 on the top and then I'd multiply by 3 on the bottom. I like the single digits on the bottom here. I like the 3 underneath of the 4. So you're ready to multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. And our answer is not 12. We need to remember we have a decimal here. So 1 number is behind the decimal in the problem, and we need to have 1 number behind the decimal in our answer. So where would our decimal go? Yep, right here between those. So 1.2 is our answer. Box it in and draw a line. We'll do another example. Move this up a little bit so you can see. So the next example we are going to do is 7 times 0.15. So when looking at this, how many numbers are behind the decimal? I see a 1 and a 5, and 7 is just a whole number. So we just have 2 numbers behind the decimal in the problem, and that's how many we need to have in our answer. 7 is a single digit, and I see 0, 1, and 5 is 3 digits. So I would probably put this one on the top when writing. Again, you don't have to line up your decimals when you're multiplying. You line up your digits. So 7 I put right underneath of the 5. 7 times 5 is 35. 5's here, you carry the 3. 7 times 1 is 7. And when you add 3, that's 10. Carry the 1 up. 7 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. So we put the 1 down here. And we need to remember, now that we're done, we had 2 numbers behind the decimal in the problem, so we need to have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. So our decimal is going to go right there because the 0 and the 5 would make our 2 numbers behind the decimal. 1.05 is our answer. I'm going to draw a line and we'll do another example. The next example, I'm going to move this up just a little bit. 4.3 times 5.7. So when looking at numbers behind the decimal, I have a 3 and a 7. That means there are 2 numbers behind the decimal in the problem, which means we should have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. Both of these are 2-digit numbers, so it doesn't really matter which one I write on the top, but I will give myself a line up here when I carry. So I'm going to put 4.3 here times 5.7. So the 7's under the 3, the 5's under the 4. Kind of gave myself a little room up top. 7 times 3 is 21. Carry the 2 and I write the 1 under the 7. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 2 is 30, and I can write 30 like that. Nice and neat, nice and spaced out. Now that I'm done multiplying with a 7, I like to cross it off with my other color. And since I'm getting ready to use the 5 now to multiply, I need to put a 0 under the 1 because the 5 is in the tens place, and it's like saying 50. So that's why we put the 0 here. 5 times 3 is 15. We put the 5 under this 0 and carry the 1 up. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So 2, 1, the 1 should be under the 3. These numbers should be nice and lined up here. Put a plus sign, trace this blue line. 1 plus 0 is 1, 0 and 5 is 5, 3 and 1 is 4, 2. Where does our decimal go? Remember, we had 2 numbers behind the decimal in the problem. We need 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. So 24.51 is your answer. And this problem really did take up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines if you do it nice and neat. The next thing I want to give you is your homework to practice this skill on multiplying decimals. And your homework, HW, is a worksheet called Practice 1-7, and I would like you to do numbers 1 through 19 odds only. So that'll be your practice that you do to help multiplying decimals.